Hey guys, it's Cassie, and it's a few days late, but I thought I'd finally get around to my March wrap-up. This month I didn't get to read as many books as I would have liked, but I still read some stuff. Some of it's more digital than physical, which is really unusual for me considering the amount of books I actually own. So I thought I would share them with you anyways, even if it's a couple days late and no one's probably looking for it. Yeah, so let's get right to it. We'll start with the physical books. So the first physical book I read this month actually took me most of the month to read. End result is I'm really not sure how I feel about it, and that book is The Bazaar of Bad Dreams by Stephen King. Now, as a hardcore reader for many, many years, it's kind of surprising that I've never ever read anything by Stephen King until this book, which is actually a collection of short stories. At the time, what drew me to it was I haven't read any Stephen King, and this one had a pretty cover and had just came out at the time I bought it. So, if you recognize this book, you probably know that it came out more than a year ago. And that's how long it sat on my shelf. Because I think I actually got this the month it came out. But, that being said, I kind of have mixed feelings about this. There were some stories in this that really just missed the mark, did nothing for me. And I was kind of like, it's not really even a short story. It was like you took a small excerpt of something and just shoved it in there, and it was kind of like, eh. And at the same time, there were some really good ones in here. I did start to see a bit of a pattern. All of the really short ones, or the shorter of the ones in here, I wasn't quite so much a fan of. There was a couple where I was like, what was really the point of it? I don't want to give anything away because they're short stories, so if I start describing one, you're probably going to end up with spoilers of the whole story, so I won't go there. But the shorter ones I found weren't as good as the longer ones, and there was a couple longer ones in here that I really, really did like, which I'm happy about. That leads me to believe that I might actually like some of his novels. I chose this as a place to start because the idea of starting one of his novels was kind of daunting to me. Everyone has a different favorite, or something that you should start on or not read, because Stephen King has so many books and he's been around for so long publishing and putting out books that there's people who are like, you know, oh, The Shining is where it's at, or oh, you should really start with it, but don't start with this, but the Mr. Mercedes series is really good. It was just too much, so I thought, okay, I'm just going to grab something. This happened to be what I grabbed, and I'm actually kind of happy that this is where I started, because now I do have an idea of what Stephen King's writing's like, and I do have to say, oddly enough, in between each of his stories in here, he kind of has like a monologue part where he just talks about how he came up with the idea of the story and just writing in general, and his style in there was so readable that it was like the stories that I didn't like, I was actually like looking forward to his next written piece, even if it was only like a paragraph. So if you're a Stephen King reader and Stephen King has something that's kind of that style, where it's just kind of flowing, I don't even know what to call it. If he has something like that style and you've read this and you know what I'm talking about, let me know, because I'd really be interested in reading it. So the second physical book and last physical book I read in the month of March was the second installment in a series I didn't think I was going to continue. But it happened to pop up for a topic, and I thought that it would be the perfect match in the 52 books around the year 2017 challenge. And I thought, okay, I did read the excerpt at the back of the first book and thought at the time I would like the second one better. That being said, so many booktubers rave about this series. So many people love this series, and I don't know what it was about the first one. Maybe it was just the mood I was in when I read it. I did not enjoy it that much. Like, it was okay, but it didn't feel like it did anything for me. So all that being said, the second book I read in the month of March was actually Scarlet by Marissa Meyer, part of the Lunar Chronicles series. Yeah, so many people rave about this, and I never got around to it. If you're someone who hasn't got around to it, the whole series is basically like fairy tale retellings with a modern twist, which I wasn't sure if I would like at all because I've never never read a retelling before. So this particular installment is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. It is set in a futuristic place with cyborgs and people called Lunars who come from the moon. And there's a whole thing. Cinder really describes all of it, and maybe that's part of the reason why I didn't get into Cinder so much. Because I guess it kind of felt information dumpy to me. But that being said, I did really enjoy Cinder's parts within this book. So I do hope to continue this on now, and I am happy to say that I did enjoy this one. So as much as I wasn't going to continue this series, I think this has changed my outlook on that. So eventually, when I get through reading the 50-some books I have bought and not read, I will probably get to the third one in this series. But for now, I did really enjoy this, and I would recommend giving this series a try if you haven't, because you're unsure about the fairy tale retellings. It's kind of its own story on its own, and there's some similarities, but really it's a whole series on its own. So with that concluding my physical books, it's time to move into the digital. Digimon, digital monsters? No? Okay. So the first book that I read that was in its digital form in the month of March was Stolen by Kelley Armstrong. If you watched the last video, which I don't think anyone has, so whatever. But this is the second in the Woman of the Otherworld series. The first one was Bitten, and it follows a girl who was changed into a werewolf and her struggle between trying to kind of hold on to the remnants of her human life or going over to the wolfish side. This sequel picks up where that left off. However, now they realize that they're not the only supernatural beings in the world, and someone has realized that too, and now they are in danger. They are being hunted for their powers, and they are being experimented on. And again, it's kind of another mystery case where they're trying to solve it, break free, escape, all that stuff. But this is actually the first book in this series that I read before recently going back in February and reading the first one. So I thought I would reread this, and it is pretty much as I remember it. I do really enjoy this series, but what makes me so sad, is that the third one is about a whole bunch of different characters. So I'm hoping that the werewolves pick up again in the third one, because I did start reading it and it switched over to a different supernatural being. But I do know that she has books like specifically of the werewolves in the series, so I'm not sure if there's more. I hope there's more. I love those characters, and I just can't. So dramatic. This video is gonna be so dramatic for this month, okay? I don't even know why. It just is. Moving on to the second digital book I did in the month of March, I did an audiobook, which again had been sitting in my Audible library for over a year. I want to say it's over a year. We're gonna go with over a year, at least a year. It has been sitting in my library, and I only finally just got around to it. And that is The Man in the Monster, an intimate portrait of a serial killer by Martha Elliot. Now, this is more of, well, I should say, I thought this was more of a biography of a serial killer. So this is like a nonfiction book. However, as soon as it started, I actually paused it, went over and reread the details on it to make sure that it was actually the book I thought it was. Because this is a little less in-depth biography slash, you know, about the case and the crimes he committed. It's a little more, like, sure, that's all, most of it's in here, but it's a little more how the author of this book became friends with said real serial killer. Yeah. So, it was interesting. It really was. But it was kind of a weird feeling because it starts off and she's explaining, and I thought it was just kind of like a foreword that she's explaining how she thought she'd never become friends with a serial killer, how when she started interviewing him for her journalism stuff that she thought, you know, she would despise him from their very first meeting until the very end. And then it becomes kind of how he's telling her all this stuff, and slowly she becomes convinced, and then knows the guy for 10 years he's on death row and becomes friends with him, which is a little unusual. I don't think there's many books out there that are based on like real people, real biographies, real crimes, where the author admits to becoming friends with people. So that's kind of interesting. And I mean, it did go through the crimes, but it wasn't the format I was expecting. Like, I was kind of expecting a little more dry, a little less story-like, because in the end it gets down to like her, you know, talking about pacing back and forth in the lobby, the process of going into the prison to actually interview him, describing what the prison is like in the rooms that she's in, that sort of thing, and a little less based on facts. Like, there's facts in there, but there's definitely a lot of stuff she's added about her own feelings and emotions and what she feels when she's interviewing this guy. So I really don't know how to feel about it, and it's a little bit strange. So the last digital book I read in the month of March was actually a Wattpad novel, because you all know I love Wattpad. Look, I love it. Spend all my times on there. I actually am on there like every day. If I'm not writing, I'm reading. If I'm not doing either of those, I'm in the forums. So that's a thing. So every month I kind of want to include one Wattpad novel. I will only include completed novels as of now, because it drives me nuts when I start a good story on Wattpad and then it's never continued. March's Wattpad read was The Hoodie Girl by Yuenwrites. What I thought about this novel, it was fun, it was quick, it was lighthearted and nice. I got through it really quick. That being said, it's also very cliche. Like, kind of like, you know, guy climbing through the bedroom window, also has this secret hidden paradise in the woods that he only shares with her that no one knows about, sort of thing. Very cliche points in this story, but it is cute, it is quick, and it was fun. And if you're on Wattpad, then you know it won a Wattpad award. But it's basically a boy and a girl who are kind of opposite spheres, opposite ends of the spectrum, nerd and popular jock. You know how it goes, guys. Begin to fall in love, and they shouldn't, and oh. But that being said, it was fun. I would recommend it if you're looking for a quick, fun read that is also free. But that's all I have. That's all I got for March. That was it. Alright, so that's all for now, guys. This is Cassie, and I'll see you all later.